Hello and welcome to yet another video in which I would like to talk about why being a highly sensitive person can sometimes be a struggle in this world, the way it is currently. My name is Agakuna. I am an HSP myself. I'm a life coach and NLP practitioner. So, it might be a surprise to some of you that the struggle that I have felt being an HSP in this world, and maybe some or most of you as well, has nothing to do with being HSP. It's nothing to do, it's not the trait that has produced this feeling or sensation of struggling, but rather the world not yet having adapted to us as highly sensitive persons, and also being in a minority, which means that most people may also not feel the need of adapting to us, because usually the dynamic in many settings, not just being HSP, is that the minority adapts and adjusts to the majority. So being highly sensitive itself, just imagine for a moment with me. You had grown up in a world that never questioned your sensitivity. It was totally okay to be sensitive, and if people criticized you, it was, or didn't like you, it was because things that happens in life. Not everybody likes us or appreciates us, but your sensitivity was never questioned and was never taken as something that was even to be questioned or criticized. Would thoughts like, I wish I wasn't that sensitive, I wish I didn't feel this way, I wish I was different, would they even have arised if there was never ever anyone questioning this, and if the world was totally okay with hosting our sensitivity, just it is like with hosting the traits or not, and people who are not highly sensitive? Probably not. Probably you wouldn't even see this as the reason for your struggle. But we've come to see this as the reason for our struggle because it is actually what we're being told. If you weren't this sensitive, things would be easier. Why can't you just toughen up? And to just give you an analogy and a little story, I was born in 78, and so when I went to school, it was the early 80s, and I am left handed. Now, in the early 80s, actually, and in Germany, which is where I was born and went to school, it was normal in the early 80s for a teacher to ask the parents whether they wanted their left-handed child to be trained to becoming right-handed. So again, we have the situation left-handed people are the minority. I don't have the number now, but I think around 15-20%, but also very, very clearly in the minority. And so the world wasn't prepared, the world of school wasn't prepared. Well, my dad, and I'm very grateful for this, he said no. Why? Because he had the trauma, because he was left-handed and he was born in the late 40s, and so you can imagine he was trained to become right-handed, and the way they did it is they tied his left hand to his back so that he couldn't use it for a long time until he was retrained. So I imagined this to be really traumatic, which is why he said no. But then what that meant for me, because the school system was not prepared to host left-handed children, meant that, for example, we were writing with ink, and my first writing experience was that of write and wipe, right? So I would write and then my hand would go over that until I learned to do this awkward movement from beneath. It took me a lot of time. Or when we would do some manualities, I would actually be see myself and be seen as clumsy because I could never cut a straight line on a paper. Why was that? Because scissors were made for right-handed. So I would either have to do this or do it with the right hand, but because it wasn't my strong hand, it would always look awkward. It would always look, and even the result would not be that which I would have wanted. And so I thought I was clumsy. I thought I couldn't write well. I thought I wasn't my handwriting wasn't even as neat because there was no and even the way I had to write because the world of school was not accommodating me as a left-handed kid. So I had to work around and try to adapt as well as possible, which also goes for HSPs in the world where we are in minority. But it wasn't. So in my head, I developed this thought that the fault was that I was a left-handed person. That wasn't the fact, because fast forward 30 plus years, I see desks for left-handed people. I see scissors for left-handed people. I've even seen bottle openers for left-handed people. The world has totally, how do you say, is now made for both left and right-handed. And my guess is that it's because more and more left-handed people, or rather their parents, decided they didn't want their kid to go through being retrained. They just said, this is the way it is. There's nothing wrong with being left-handed. And so the world around has to accommodate. It's no big issue anymore to be left-handed. I grew up hearing people say, why don't you write with the good hand? So it was even the bad hand. I recently talked to a friend of mine whose son, she has 3 sons and one of them is left-handed. And I asked him, how is it at school? He was like, normal. No problem. And I was like, okay, excellent. So why don't we just go for this and not lose the hope, but also not lose the perspective that it's not the trait of being highly sensitive. It's just that the world is not yet there to host us in our wholeness, the way we are. But there's nothing wrong and there's no reason to now try and change and be in another way, especially if you watched the video before, when it's something genetic. There's no use in really wasting our energy and time trying not to be the way we are, but rather embrace ourselves and our wholeness. And then, who knows, I really, really hope and I have this vision that the world will adapt and be there and be the place where both people who are not highly sensitive and highly sensitive can take up their place and be their authentic selves. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in the next video.